Good morning. Had all my alarms turned off, so I had I lost track of time. We are in the book of Exodus, though. This much I do know. And we got through the first part of Exodus 17, water from the rock. And so we're moving on now to the second great story in Exodus 17, the battle with the Amalekites. So we've got, 8 verses or so? Exodus 17, verse 8, it says, Now Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, Choose some men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill and the rod of God in my hand, or with the rod of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Man, I just want to pause there. Well, I'm just going to start there because we might not even get through this whole story in one day because there's actually a lot of lessons in this little story. And so we start with Amalek. So the Amalekites, they're going to be people who are going to bug the Israelites for a long time. Now, the Amalekites in the Bible are a picture of the flesh. So when you think about the flesh, it's, excuse me, it's us, right? We were reading in Galatians 5 at church yesterday about the spirit versus the flesh. The spirit lusts against the flesh lusts against the spirit. And the idea is that our flesh has got a mind of its own. It kind of does what it wants to do. And Paul talks about how as long as he's in this body of flesh, Romans 7, he knows there's going to be struggles. He knows there's going to be days where your body doesn't want to get up. Your body doesn't want to go to church. Your body doesn't want to be submissive to your husband. Your body doesn't want to be sacrificial for your wife. Your body does not want to engage your children and correct them rather than just let them go because it's easier. Your body doesn't want to watch what it says. Your flesh cries out. Usually it just says, feed me. Feed me food. Feed me money. Feed me sex. Feed me anything I want. And that's the flesh. The Amalekites in the Bible are a type of the flesh. A good cross reference for you is 1 Samuel chapter 15. King Saul will be asked by God to annihilate the Amalekites. Every single Amalekite. Father, son, wife, daughter, cow, sheep, everything. Because that's the way you deal with the flesh. Like, you don't give it an inch because it'll take a mile. You totally just have to annihilate it. And so that's the kind of the idea is that we're not supposed to feed into our flesh at all. We don't give it anything. Now, here's what happens is in verse 8, right? We're still in the first verse there. It came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. Now, a good cross-reference, you guys just should write down in your Bibles, have your pens ready. Deuteronomy 25, 17 and 18. In Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 17, it says, Remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you're coming out of Egypt. Extra information now. How he met you on the way and attacked your rear ranks. all the stragglers at your rear. When you were tired and weary, he did not fear God. Therefore it shall be when the Lord your God is giving you rest from your enemies all around in the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess as an inheritance, that you will blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. You shall not forget. So you see, King Saul, he's supposed to wipe them out, because that's what Deuteronomy 25 says, that one day when you have rest, and Saul was king and he actually had rest, things were going good, that you're going to wipe them out. Now, please notice that they attacked the rear, they attacked the stragglers. Peter tells us that our enemy, the devil, he goes about like a lion, and he's looking for those whom he may devour. Well, now we know that the flesh and the devil, they both have something in common. They look for weaknesses, and that's what they go after. You see, Amalek came to the rear. This is the people who couldn't keep up, right? You have 2 million people or whatever, right? They're marching through the desert, but there's always some stragglers, aren't there? Old people, people with little children. I mean, I'm just saying, like, the giant march of people, right? There's going to be some elderly people, injured people, people with small children. These are all the weak and defenseless people, the people who, they're struggling for a reason. But no, that's what a predator goes after. A lion doesn't go after the alpha, whatever, ibex or, antelope or whatever, the lion goes after someone weak and struggling, someone who's not with the pack. So here's where it's kind of an obvious application, guys, is that Amalek, the flesh goes after the weak points. The devil goes after the weak points. There's two ways you can take this and apply it, and they're both just straightforward, good advice and wisdom. One, the stragglers are the ones who are not close to the rest of the pack. Okay? So the idea is that there are people who are struggling from behind. They're not with the group, and they are easy to prey upon. If you are not getting together with other Christians, you are easy prey. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's really a message that you can glean from the Bible in multiple places. And Hebrews chapter 10, it tells us, let us not forsake the gathering of ourselves together, right? In fact, we're previously was saying how we need to exhort one another daily, and that's the idea. Hebrews talks about exhorting one another daily while it is today, that otherwise people might drift and have an evil heart of unbelief. And Hebrews 10, there's 3, there's 10. Hebrews talks about this a few times. It says, right, so much more as you see the day approaching. If it looks like the end times as you look around, all the more you should be in regular Christian fellowship, hanging out with Christians who are going to sharpen you, who are going to challenge you. COVID was crazy because people got all by themselves, and Satan went looking, and he found people who were weak when they were alone. And I think he snagged a good handful of people from every church, I'm sure. People who were alone, and he got them into old addictions or got them into false doctrines because there wasn't someone there to notice, are you off the wagon? There wasn't someone there to notice, like, since when do you believe that waxed? So when people aren't in fellowship, they are these stragglers. Also, though, when you're alone just in day-to-day life, when you're up late at night. Your brain isn't thinking as clearly as it normally is. When the flesh is weak. It's funny how it's like when the flesh is weak is when it is strong. You know, when I'm sick and tired, in some ways, that's when my flesh, my physical body flesh, is the weakest. But that biblical concept of the flesh, that's when it's at its strongest. When I am not well rested, not well fed, tired, hungry, or in bad health, it's worth noting that when my physical flesh is weak, quite often that spiritual concept of the flesh, that's when it's strong. Robert says he thinks best late at night. You're probably getting yourself into trouble, Robert. I just say, you come up with these weird theology ideas of yours. And so what does God have Joshua? This is the first occurrence of Joshua too. Joshua here, boom, we have Joshua now. We'll get to Joshua again later, but verse 9 to wrap this up. I don't want to take too much longer, but go out with some men and you go fight Amalek. That's it. Fight it. You need to fight it. I don't have it memorized, but it's from a May date. Oswald Chambers in one of his devotionals. I swear it's from a May date. I don't even know if it's from his highest, but he says about moods. Because like when we're in the flesh, when we get in the flesh, we can get in bad moods. That's your flesh. If you're in a bad mood, you are not walking in the spirit, you are in the flesh. And I love how Oswald Chambers says, he says, moods do not go out by praying. You do not pray away a mood. He goes, you grab it by the scruff of the neck and you essentially beat it out, is what he says. I remember the scruff of the neck part. Because he says, like, yeah, you're in a bad mood. He's just like, oh, Lord, get me out of this bad mood. And Oswald Chambers says, no. That's something you have to fight it. You have to directly deal with this issue. When you are in the flesh and when your flesh cries out, you fight. Now, we're going to find tomorrow that between Joshua and Moses, the fight is going to take place here between the word of God and with prayer. But speaking of moods and the typology also, again, I think there's something there where, you go and you fight the flesh. You just need to fight it. And quite often, whatever it may be, we are tempted by the flesh. But 1 Corinthians 10 tells us that you're not tempted by anything that is not common to man. The idea is whatever temptation you're being struggled with, Satan would want you to think that you're weird. Like you're the only one who struggles with this. No, it's common. You're struggling with the same thing that other people watching this video struggle with. You're not weird, you're normal. The fact that you're struggling even proves you're normal. But with every temptation, God will make a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. Now, here's the thing. You might not like this, but sometimes the way of escape is saying no. Sometimes the way of escape is not walking into the store, right? It's turning off your phone. It's just not speaking when you want to say things that are bad. I like how Arla brings up Pastor Tony. It's a dog fight. That's the idea, is like sometimes the way of escape is fighting. That's simply it. It's just saying no, and you have to buck up and you have to fight. You have to actually get in the fight and not lay aside passively. And so, fight the flesh. Destroy the flesh. Make no provision for the flesh, the Bible tells us. And that's really the emphasis here. Make no provision for your flesh. If you know that you have an area you are weak, burn the bridges. Throw away the items you don't want. Like you struggle with past drug addictions. You don't need to hang on to a pipe for a rainy day, right? Like you don't need to own a pipe. You don't need to own a this or a that. If you find that certain friends, when you hang out with them, you do stupid things, stop hanging out with them. Or don't do it unless you bring along a solid Christian friend who will call you out, because then you won't be alone. You'll be with the pack, right? If you find that late at night you look at things you shouldn't, or come up with crazy theology like Robert, maybe get your sleep and wake up early like the real spiritual people. Okay. So, just messing with Robert. All right. I love you guys. Have a great day. I'll make sure all my alarms are turned on so I don't miss my live stream by over 5 minutes. And have a happy Monday. I don't have coffee today. Like, that we can end on normal. So, all right. You guys take care, and I will see you guys around.